Hey everybody, thank you for joining us on our podcast, Moms on the Move. I'm Jen Wills.
And I'm Ashley Steigerwald.
We have Kristen Maurer here, who is my little burn buddy, the burn boot camp buddy. That's not why she's here.
The cult of burn boot camp.
She's one of the cult members.
I am a burn boot camp member.
But the reason she's here is we're going to talk about addiction today. And you work with the nonprofit, The Family Effect.
The Family Effect. I am on the board of The Family Effect.
Yes.
As of just a few weeks ago.
I know. When you
super
posted
exciting.
that,
Thank you.
You were so excited.
I'm super excited.
I know.
I love The Family Effect. I've been volunteering with them for about 7 years now.
Wow.
So to be on the board is just an incredible opportunity for me, I think, and I'm excited.
Yeah, you said, so obviously The Family Effect, just to give a little background, is for addiction.
The Family Effect serves the upstate for addiction and recovery services. They are... They have several different divisions, including the Phoenix Center, Serenity Place, White Horse Academy, and they serve the community in rehabilitation and recovery, as well as prevention and education.
Okay. And so what made you, I mean, this might be too personal, you don't have to answer that. What made you get involved?
Well, in fact, I got involved 7 years ago through the Junior League.
Okay.
Volunteering, it was a placement that I had, and it was one of the partner organizations that we worked with, and I thought this would be a good opportunity to kind of get to know a little bit more about their services. But once I started going, I really became hooked because I saw the difference they were making in the community. And I learned so much about really what an epidemic addiction is in our community. And it's not something that people really want to talk about.
Right.
But now, like, I love to talk about recovery because I'm so passionate about the difference it can make for people and families. And I think, too, we often think that addiction is an other person problem.
Right.
You know, if we don't know somebody who's addicted, I think it's easy for us to think it doesn't affect us, but in fact, it affects all of us.
And I think, too, the chances are you might actually know someone because it's a very silent disease. And I don't think it's something that, you see and people can hide it very well. So I was looking at statistics and I text you and I was like, this is really depressing. I was kind of deep diving into some of them yesterday, and apparently 2020 obviously made everything a lot worse. But obviously addiction, there's different, avenues of it, but alcohol sales went up 250% this past year. And obviously it's not like the kind of fun alcohol, like we're going out to bars. No, I mean, that's probably like the coping mechanism for people in 2020, because what else are you going to do? I mean, not, obviously it's only going to get worse is what I'm saying. But, I was also seeing like 10% of children have an alcoholic parent. And, the chances of the kids becoming an addict are 4 times higher, if they're born into.
If they are in a household where there's addiction present, they are 4 times as likely to become addicts later on in life.
Right.
Starting as early as adolescence.
Wow.
And so, and that's when it becomes an everybody problem, because when we have adolescents that are addicted, that they are getting in trouble with the law and they need services, such as maybe foster care services, if they're getting placed outside of the home because of addiction, or if there's neglect and abuse, those all have a ripple effect in our community. So it really does affect all of us, whether we know somebody or not.
Yeah. It was saying that the number one breakup of the family is addiction.
It is
That
the
is
root
so
cause,
sad.
of a lot of problems.
Yeah.
It really is. And I think, too, a lot of us do know people that struggle with addiction. There's just, unfortunately, still such a stigma attached to addiction and a shame attached to addiction, where people who are struggling with substance abuse disorder feel like they're ashamed, like they have somehow failed themselves or failed their families, and they don't want to seek the help that they need, even though there are so many resources available to help people.
Well, and I think, too, it becomes like, is this something that I can control, when in reality it's a disease, and you can't control if you have other diseases. And that's my opinion, that alcoholism and addiction are diseases, and that it's not that you are being selfish and you're not, so I think that there is a stigma, but there shouldn't be.
I agree.
And I think
completely.
that like this podcast, I have a feeling is going to actually like hit some nerves because addiction looks so different to everyone. You know, it doesn't have to be that, you know, you're homeless on the street. It can be that you try not to finish that bottle of wine or, you know, have that one more drink and you just can't seem to stop yourself. With permission and full disclosure, my husband does not drink anymore. He stopped drinking almost 3 years ago because he's a like all or nothing type guy.
Yeah.
And we almost didn't make it because of it.
Yeah.
You know, it was the acceptable fun stuff. That's how we met in college. And prior to kids, we'd go out and then we'd come home and we'd have our drinks and everything kind of changed. And I changed when we had the boys. But, you know, I was realizing that like he couldn't reel it in. And he was well, it took years for him to realize that, to be honest. It became like, well, next weekend I won't, you know, drink. And then next weekend would happen and here he would be again. And it was a cycle that was not breaking. So he does not drink anymore at all. So he told me I could say that. But it's been very good for our family.
Yeah. That's something else we share in common because my husband also does not drink anymore.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, he's going on 8.5 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think in solidarity, I mostly don't drink. I might drink like once or twice a year, but I kind of gave it up too because I think that like for our family, it was not improving the quality of our lives.
Yeah.
If anything, it was making it difficult and worse.
Yes.
And so, yeah, I do have that personal experience. And then beyond my immediate family, like my extended family, alcohol reigns supreme. I mean, there are so many people that I love that struggle with alcohol addiction. And in varying degrees of denial about it.
Yes.
I think. And it's hard. It's really hard.
You don't have to answer this, but like, did your husband do the same thing? Like, Chris would always say, you know, no, I don't have a problem. I don't have a problem. He would never put the A word. He would never associate himself as that. I think because it made him feel different and weak. And he would constantly, it would end up being, I feel like it turned into a game with him. Like, okay, well, I'm only going to get a 6-pack. And then it would turn into, I mean, he might do that for one night and then, you know, I'd wake up and I'd be like 12 cans out again. 18. It was so anyway, it was really the only way we stayed together as our family. And I'm so incredibly grateful that he was strong enough.
What was the turning point?
I literally had enough. I think the fights got tired. I was tired of the same fight, and we'd have the same conversations. He'd promised to make the same changes, and it was just getting to the point where I was tired and the boys were getting older. And I didn't want to grow up with that dynamic. And I had just started real estate, and I was like, I don't know how I'm going to figure this out, but I'm going to figure it out because I'm not doing this to my family. I'm not living like this. And, you know, I was sitting in church, and I literally had this like kind of like peace come over me, and I was like, this is the right decision for my family. I'm totally done. And it wasn't that I didn't love Chris at all. It was the fact that it was a toxic thing going on, and I felt it. His parents felt it. I wasn't the only one to say he had an issue. It was an issue, but he finally admitted it was an issue for the first time and broke down. Mm-hmm. So, I think the turning point was like, just like, no longer am I willing to fight about this. Mm-hmm. It was just draining. Yeah. So having that removed has been like, I mean, it's like a lighter feeling. Yeah. I mean, I look back and I'm like, I don't know how we did that for so long, mm-hmm. you know? So anyway, but thank you, Chris.
Well, thank you for sharing that. That's, you know, I think an important thing to remember when you love somebody with substance abuse disorder is that it's the person has a disorder, substance abuse disorder. So I have learned I try to avoid labels like alcoholic
Yes.
or addict or tweaker or, whatever other flattering names we've come up with for
Right.
people who have addiction issues with whatever substance it is. But, the person is separate from the disorder. And I think, too, it's hard. Like, I don't know how it was in your family, but a lot of times, like for us, it was a total lifestyle change. We made all new friends.
Yeah.
It seemed like there were people who think that that's contagious. Like,
Right.
oh, you struggle with alcohol abuse? Well, I don't think I can be around you because...
Right. Or it makes people feel uncomfortable that they're not able to drink anymore around that person. Like it makes them feel like, oh, what should I do right now?
Right. And then they get uncomfortable, and sometimes that causes some self-reflection in people that also makes them uncomfortable, where they may self-reflect a little and say, hey, but I don't want to think about that. It's not my problem. It's not my problem. And then, of course, we encountered people who were like, well, it's not my fault that you struggle with alcohol. So,
right.
Nobody ever said it was, but thanks for clarifying.
Right.
And I think that just makes recovery hard for people. And then like with the Family Effect and the organizations that the Family Effect supports and the people that we serve, you've got at Serenity Place, it is an inpatient rehabilitation center for moms with preschool age kids and younger who struggle with in many cases, very severe drug abuse. Sometimes it's generational, and so a lot of these women, this is how they grew up. I know women who grew up with their parents doing drugs in front of them, and that was their normal.
Right.
So like when you think about like Chris and Joe and people like them, and they have a strong support system already in place of people who love them and want them to get well.
Yes.
And are cheering them on every step of the way. And unfortunately, I think in our society as a whole, for a lot of people who are recovering or trying to recover from substance abuse disorders, that is not the case.
Right.
I feel like they have a lot of cards stacked against them.
Yeah.
Especially like with these moms that I've seen, they are in danger of losing custody or have lost custody of their children due to neglect that has come as a result of their substance abuse and sometimes in worse cases due to neglect or abuse. So they've got legal challenges tied to it. They're coming from a community where substance abuse is normal.
And probably more accepted.
And then, whenever you're trying to improve yourself and improve your situation, there are people who again, take that personally or feel like, well, it's not good enough for you, this life that we live, and who are you to try to improve yourself?
Right.
We're doing just fine, but are you?
Right. It makes them uncomfortable to kind of reflect.
So they've got that against them. And it's just that feeling that like everybody's against them and they're trying to recover and get better so they can get their family back.
Yeah.
And what I love about the Family Effect and Serenity Place is that we're there for them. Yeah. So it is a research-based recovery program. They're trauma informed, so it doesn't use like shame or methods that may be a little passé. There are some methods still being used today that I don't think are as effective as they were 50 years ago. What kind of
methods do they implement there?
Well, they're all scientific research-based methods. So they have a very strong, I don't want to say curriculum is probably the wrong word, and forgive me if I use the wrong words. But they've got a very strict is the wrong word, but they've got a program in place for every woman where they do about 50 hours of meetings with various like maybe NA or AA, Favor, which is another Greenville organization that supports recovery. And then they've got other things that they're doing throughout the week in order to improve themselves, in order to be sober, to get recovered, and to learn how to be a parent a lot of times. Those programs also serve children where they're trying to get them caught up developmentally with their peers, because a lot of times they're developmentally delayed.
Because they're pregnant mothers. Yeah.
So so they've they do things to promote the betterment of the family unit. So not just, come in and get clean and then go back out into the world and good luck to you.
Right.
Go back into the exact same situation that you were in. Instead, it's like, okay, let's get you clean and let's work on coping skills. Let's work on job skills and life skills, and get you out there.
Do you get to meet people and like interact a lot?
Well, I do. So because when I started serving there, I started in childcare capacity was how I started, because I was like, I had young kids at the time. It's like, childcare, I've got this. I can do childcare. But I remember like the first few times I walked in, it was very intimidating to me because, a lot of these women just from a different walk of life, I'll say.
Yeah.
I had one mom say to me once, she said to me, "You are so intimidating." And she was like, put me in a room full of guys with neck tattoos and I'm fine. But like, put me in a room full of women like you and I don't know what to do.
And you're like,
I was like,
trying out.
Oh my gosh, because if I was in a room with guys full of neck tattoos, I would feel intimidated.
Yeah.
But she, so I think that was very eye-opening for me.
Yeah.
But I started just kind of getting to know them.
Neck tattoo.
Yeah, no neck tattoos. I think that would hurt so bad. But getting to know them and looking for common threads. Like we were all moms.
I was about to say, yeah, you used that.
We had young kids. One time I was there and I had my kids with me, and Jack, who was probably 5 at the time, had a tantrum, like a full-blown tantrum. And then I look over and there are like 12 moms staring at me.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to calm him down and I'm trying to keep it together like we do when they're having a full-blown tantrum. And then they all started laughing. And like I wasn't feeling like laughing in the moment, because he's on the floor rolling around. But they were like, "Oh, it happens to you." Yeah. And I'm like, "Of course it happens."
Right, exactly.
To me. And of course I am 2 seconds away from losing my cool. And the only reason I'm not is because
you're watching
all
me.
of you staring at me.
Yes. I got to keep it together right now.
But it just kind of went from there. And then I started finding other opportunities that I could help. At Christmas time, we sponsor family at Christmas time, and I knew people who could also do that. So I started reaching out to other people and, "Can you help?" "Yeah, sure." A lot of times people, when you ask them, will do things in order to help. So, I also got Joe involved.
Good.
One of the things, Joe's a pediatrician, and one of the things that I learned from being there was that these moms don't have the same level of education regarding pre or postnatal care or even toddler care that other moms have, which is just a privilege that we take for granted sometimes. So he started doing some kind of trainings with the moms, healthy eating, healthy food, what to feed your kid, what to eat when you're pregnant, what not to eat.
Yep.
Don't smoke. Things that they may not have learned before. So we just got involved in different ways throughout the years. And
do you keep in touch with anyone?
I do. Yeah.
Aww.
Yeah. One of my very best friends, she left me. She lives in Michigan now, but she went through the program. And when I met her, she had lost custody of her 3 older kids. She had her preschooler with her and she was pregnant. And she said to me, "I'm going to get my kids back." And I remember thinking, I don't know, like that's pretty hard to do when your 3 older kids have been in the system for years and years. And she has all her kids.
Yeah.
She lives in Michigan. She is a nurse. She provides for them. She's a single mom, and she's amazing. And just watching her journey has been...
That's so great.
It's awesome.
How long has her journey been?
7 years.
7 years, wow.
She's been clean 7 years, and now, she's just... That doesn't define her.
Right.
Right. She is an amazing single mom who has an amazing job and takes really good care of her kids.
Oh.
Yeah. And when I see that, and her kids are so happy to be back with their mom.
That's all they want.
Yeah. That's what makes me passionate about what the family effect does.
Yes.
Is bringing families back together.
Yeah. I love that. I was going to ask also, the first step, how do people, what kind of advice do you give for people who are thinking, maybe I just need to have a talk? Who do they contact?
Well,
or if like they think like, I wonder if my spouse or brother or sister or friend is dealing with something, is that something they should address with them? Is that the type of thing where the person needs to be on board first? Or
Yeah, I think that's hard. I think, the person has to want help. And that's I think really tough for families a lot of times when you're on the outside looking in and you can see that something needs to change, but I think that person they have to want it. They have to want it.
Right.
They have to want it. And that's tough. That's hard.
Yeah.
that's hard.
Yep.
Yeah, there are definitely, I would say to anybody who's struggling, that has a loved one that is struggling with substance abuse disorder, if it's not your personal struggle, but you have a loved one that does, definitely seek out Al-Anon and go to a meeting.
It's a helpless feeling.
It is a helpless feeling.
Yeah.
And, Al-Anon is a starting point. And I think there are probably other starting points. So this is just Kristen saying this. But Al-Anon is a great place to start. And if you go to a meeting, you can hear what other people are struggling with. First of all, you're not going to feel so alone. Secondly, there are going to be people there that you can talk to that will probably have some ready resources available for you. If you go to church, you can try reaching out to your church. Our church, I go to Grace Church, and we have a care and recovery program.
Oh, wow.
And we have a curriculum called Regen that people can pretty much jump into anytime. And that's also a starting point.
Yep.
And I'm certain there are other churches in town that offer similar services. So even if you don't go to a certain church, you can certainly still reach out and see what they might have available. I think like with the Phoenix Center and the Family Effect, like with Serenity Place, it's not something that you would just call and say, I have somebody. They have a wait list at almost all times because a lot of times these are court appointed placements for these women. But the Phoenix Center does have some resources. So,
and what does the Phoenix Center specialize?
Well, the Phoenix Center kind of is over all of it. For Greenville County, the Drug and Alcohol Abuse Commission. But the Phoenix Center specifically specializes in detox. So there is a division of the Phoenix Center where people go for 3 to 10 days on average to medically detox from drugs or alcohol, and then they're placed into a program after that. But they do have a number on the website that you can call that they could direct you if somebody was looking, like if somebody was at the point where they thought, I need help, I'm ready to get some help, I don't know what to do, call the Phoenix Center and they will help
direct you. What about like opioid? Do you see a lot of like the opioid addiction or not really as much? Yeah. I'm sure. I mean, it's so easily abused. I mean, it's just so easy to abuse.
It's rampant.
It
is. And I think not as talked about as much as it should be. And again, with that stigma, you know, that other people problem, where, you know, but I will say this about addiction, you know, where we find ourselves as a country so divided right now, like we're divided politically, we're divided racially, we're divided socioeconomically with education levels. Like addiction does not discriminate.
No,
I mean, addiction affects everybody at every end of every spectrum. I don't care who you are.
It does.
And in opioid addiction, it can affect everybody.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I kind of want to reiterate just like one more time before we end this, but you know, obviously I think it's so much more common than people realize. It's just not talked about. So you might feel like, oh my gosh, I'm so embarrassed to bring this up that, you know, my husband's been drinking like this. And I didn't tell people that. That was something that I had really kept to myself and struggled with, and for the sake of our family at the time. And, you know, he's still not very open with telling everyone. I haven't drank in, you know, X amount of time and whatever it is. But I just want people to realize, like, it is more common. There's nothing wrong with the person. There's nothing wrong with you. And that all you have to do is like pick up the phone Or probably even just call your friend because they probably know someone.
Yeah. Get help. Because
really,
it's out there. And there are people who want to help. And, you know, people who are passionate about recovery and passionate about helping. And I mean,
call Kristen.
Sometimes I wish I could do more, but, you know, this is where God has me now. And this is what I can do. And so I'm just a stay-at-home mom. You know, I don't have a degree. I'm not a therapist or a counselor or
not just
or anything, but but I, you know, anybody can get involved, and anybody can get the resources available to help. So I do feel passionate about it because it works.
Right.
It can work, and it can change people's lives. And like we know, if one person gets better, a whole family can get better. And then when a whole family gets better, it helps everybody.
It does.
Absolutely. What if somebody wants to help? What if somebody wants to get involved with Family Effect?
Well, there are so many different ways that you could help with Family Effect, and we are always excited to have people come and volunteer. We have ongoing needs for childcare at Serenity Place, which is so much fun. And I think like for moms who feel like they're kind of stretched to the limit and they don't have anything left, but if you can go do childcare once a month or once, you know, however often, that's something that we're comfortable doing, I think. It makes a huge difference. And those kids, they will change your heart and your life, you know. But beyond that, of course, donation drives for in-kind donations for Serenity Place or White Horse Academy. There's also a program after Serenity Place called the Lotus Program, which transitions these women and these families back. So they're usually looking for donations, and there's a list on their website of what they need. Doing dinners, like if you have a church group that wants to coordinate a dinner, like they love that. Is so much fun. Or game night. And then of course, like at the detox center, you know, just little gifts. Just taking
I'm sure that's a struggle.
Reading materials or something. You know, they're always looking for something like that. But on the website, and I'll give you the link so you can like drop it.
Yes. And you're on Instagram at Family Effect.
Yes, Instagram and Facebook, the Family Effect.
Perfect. Great. And we will set up that link. But I hope this touched somebody and was helpful. So thank you again, Kristen.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome.
I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We look forward to seeing you next time.